let's have a quick scan through. I'm not going to go through all of the scales and arpeggios. You really don't need me to tell you how to teach a scale. I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. So I'll go super quick. From preliminary, as I mentioned before, everything that we are trying to achieve here is about creating a tone which is free and open, forward and bright. That's really it, a nice, natural, open sound. Can I stress that in these earlier grades, what we are really hoping to get is one voice across the entire range. So I don't necessarily want to hear a screaming belt in the lower register and then a very weak upper register. I want one clean voice. And you might say, why is that important? Well, because in the real world, musical directors expect that. They expect women to be able to sing fully in their lower register, but also deliver a very convincing upper register that's full and rich. You really must be able to do that. So in these lower grades, and I'm going to play you a couple of examples of some littlies that I found where they do that. So you can hear a little bit of that beautiful, nice, even sound across the entire voice is terribly important. There's some unvoiced fricatives in there. You can create your own. Of course, for the exam, you need to do those. It's important to say that when students come into the exam, normally there's an accompanist there and the accompanist will play the key. They've determined that you don't have to do the exercises in the keys written. You can change that up to you, whatever you want to do. The examiner doesn't really need to know that, but be sure that you've sorted that out. Most people just do it in the written key, but you're free to make some changes there if you so desire. They start to get longer at grade 2, and the breathing starts to become more challenging. Do I know they're tricky? Yes. Yes, I do. You do have the capability to slightly modify tempos. The tempos are a guide here. You can modify them if you have someone who's struggling. I've indicated some optional breath marks in there if you need to. In a lot of my exercises with my students, I always throw in an octave leap or a fifth leap right at the end of the exercise when you have the least amount of air, and it's painful. My students just know that those are coming, and so they prepare for that. Grade 3, we'll start to introduce some of these longer legato lines. You'll recognise many of these. Some of them I've written, but some of them are stock standard things that were taught to me that I'm sure were taught to you over the years. Grade 4, if I do a scale that's tricky, I at least try to put it in some kind of format that feels enjoyable to sing, where we don't lose the will to live in the middle of it. An example would be 4.5. How enjoyable is it to sing a harmonic minor scale? Well, I can think of lots of other things I'd rather do. So I just put it into a little melody here to try to make it enjoyable. Let's sing that one. So this is page 25. Here we go. 3, 4. Nice and simple. You can take a breath in there, but don't linger. You can take a breath, and that's absolutely fine. Grade 5. They start to definitely become trickier. The 5.5 exercise is all to do with, and it's certainly reflected in the vocalises, that register shift, that shift to, there's a page much further back that's got all of the technical, a breakdown of all the technical work, which would be great to bring up. And working on that sotto voce with, yes, well done. Working on that sotto voce with your gentlemen is really important. It's used so extensively in musical theatre, and trying to encourage them to keep the spacing open and the airflow even is tricky. And I also start to introduce things like swing, syncopation, other exercises start to crop up. The swing exercise 5.6, let's have a little go at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and short. Nice and short. Don't linger anywhere. Nice and crisp as well. And here the text should actually be slightly lazy. I actually wanted it to have no text and for the candidate to create their own text, which is what I wanted. AMEB Federal nearly passed out when I when I said that. They really had they had the vapors when I said that, and they said no, you have to put text in, and so there's text there. But please, we don't want do da do ba da do da do ba da. We really don't. We want a swing feel. And the whole exercise should reflect that, a very natural, easy swing feel. And same when you get to the syncopation exercise in grade 6, you know, really relaxed feel. Yes, these have chords, and in your studio you can use them if you want to do several of them with your student back to back and use the chords and faff around there like I would do with the chords underneath, and you're certainly able to do that. But in the exam, of course, they will perform them unaccompanied. These a 6.1, which has sort of like a longer legato line through there. Let's have a little sing of that one. 3, 4. Pretty beautiful legato line, nothing complicated through there. Start to introduce some seesaw exercises, which is tricky. And then look, I won't go over all the rest, but grade 7 and 8, the exercises are quite difficult through there. So they will need some time. It's important that you, as I explain to my students, that and it does bother me that some people perceive vocal technique as restricting you. And lots of students come in thinking that vocal technique doesn't allow you to do the things that you want. And that's how a lot of students think. You would know that. But I was trying to encourage my students to think, as I'm sure you do too, that vocal technique is what frees us to be artistically free, and we can do whatever we want if the technique is sorted and out of the way. Technique shouldn't get in the way. I absolutely agree with that. But it should be so good that you do abandon it and you are able to be artistically free and do whatever you want artistically. I know you know that, and that makes complete sense, but I encourage you to speak to your students about it in those terms.